atmosphere of the ship real weight. I also really appreciate the consistency of the idea of utility. Here in the back you can see the table folds away so that you have an increased amount of space. It really fits with the idea that this ship is really meant to serve a purpose. It's not about luxury, it's about making sure you can get the job done. Here the shower is very consistent with that idea. It's very tiny, it doesn't look like it would be terribly comfortable, but it serves its function, and serves as a great place to hide the droids in case the Empire comes looking. Ha ha ha. Anyway, one of the other very successful components of the Constellation series are the sleeping quarters. At first glance it looks like a regular bunk bed, but if you look closer you'll notice that there's a white panel on the inside of them. Those are actually life support systems, because these double as escape pods. Now that is efficiency of design. Now while they're not as comfortable as say the 600i sleeping quarters, they do allow for a bit more privacy with roll down doors. And just in case you're wondering how they're ejected from the exterior of the ship, well, if you go outside and you look directly above and below the beds, there are doors that are supposed to blow off in the case of an emergency. Kudos to the designers for their attention to detail. Something that you'll also appreciate here in the rear section of the Constellation. There's a lot to process.
Yes, that's some super nice spaceships, starships. They are totally worth $60 to... Yes, you cannot get them for $60. RSI Constellation. Yes, I watch my emails. I open the web browser. And to find the link Star Citizen. Yes, this one. Let's store ship. Ships. Ships RSI Constellation. This one.
Exiting interspace. Location unknown.
Everyone okay? I'm fine, sir. Did we get it?
Jump point is charted, sir.
Good. Comms, we got any contact?
No, sir. Scope is clear.
Keep looking. Scarlet, take us on the tour.
With pleasure.
She's all yours, Doctor.
We've got a protoplanet, no atmosphere. Unknown planet 2. There's an atmosphere.
Doctor.
It could sustain life.
That's a nice ship. Probably expensive. RSI. Yes, I bought that. Yes, view buying options. Okay, $300, $400. Add to chart. That's a nice one. I don't know if they have a game package with this constellation. Yes, they have that. They have a game package. With 10,000 credits. Fish tank, 10,000, 6 months, digital star map, workbench. Yes, they have a starter pack with this one. But I think I just buy. I'm a poor man, I just start with this Aurora starter pack. I think I do that.
The delay is...
He's still loading all his cars.
And then we'll go through the door and then... No.
Yes, that's a live stream of the King Conqueror. He has
Just
loading all his cars.
Right now you're not even in the screen, bro. You can see on the screen.
Yes, but we go and look more. Yes.
Here in the cargo
Constellation.
because there's just so much detail. The
And
lighting, the
watch
texture
this
choice,
next
positioning of
little
spaces
bit.
is all very dramatic and wonderfully thought through. But what I'd like to call attention to
That's
is
a fine
the size of
ship.
the cargo area. It is somewhat of an issue. Getting the Ursa rover up onto the ramp is easy enough. The issue becomes apparent though when you try to close the door with the Ursa rover on it. Although it fits and you can get to the panel, you're very close to being crushed by the Ursa if it were to shift position. This to me just seems like a very dangerous design, and they should definitely consider widening the ramp just slightly to allow for a bit more safe access to the lift panel. When the injury mechanics are implemented into Star Citizen, I can imagine a lot of people having their legs broken because of this design flaw. But all of this section is definitely not flawed. This area up here, the catwalk that goes around the cargo area, is certainly really cool to walk through. And you can really appreciate the designer's attention to detail where you can see the missiles before they're loaded into the launcher on the roof. Now that is just plain cool. Now the ship doesn't have an engineering section like the 600i. It's actually dispersed throughout the entire ship. Here you'll see on the right avionics panels, and across you'll see shield generator panels. Those of you really paying attention may have noticed that there have been other panels in the ship that we've seen that have been labeled identically to this. And there is a very good reason for that. In architecture, we call this resilient design, and it's even more important in a spaceship. Say if, for example, one of the generators, the avionics, or the life support fails, you've got a backup redundant system that can keep you going until you get repaired. Definitely more of a concern in the vacuum of space than it would be on a planetary surface. Finally, we've reached the rear section of the Constellation, and it's here I'd like to point out some extreme design flaws that I believe the ship has. While I can appreciate the novelty of having a snub-nosed fighter docked to the back of my ship, I find its effectiveness somewhat dubious, especially considering in the case of the Aquila, I don't have additional storage if I have an Ursa rover in my cargo bay. Where am I storing my extra food? Where am I storing my extra supplies? How about if I get injured? Where am I going to fix myself up without a medical bay? All of these are very important considerations when you're thinking about an exploration vessel.
Try
The fact
to
that
adjust the
neither this
camcorder,
or the
but
600i
that's
have
hard.
medical facilities is extremely concerning. And I would highly encourage the designers to go back and think about how this rear space could be used more effectively. In conclusion, I really appreciate the design aesthetic and language of the Constellation series. Its utilitarian and purpose-inspired design is wonderful and consistent throughout the entire ship, with the exception of the few things that I have noted. And it's for this reason that I actually prefer the design of the Constellation over the 600i. It has so much more weight and purpose to it, and for that reason, it's my favorite ship. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you like the RSI Constellation series? Do you dislike it? Or do you agree or disagree with anything I've said in this video? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you like the video, if you'd like to see more, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to get into Star Citizen, be sure you check the comment section below to join my community, where you can join me in later videos to find my special reference code, which will give you 5,000 UEC when you make a pledge to get into Star Citizen. Anyway guys, I hope you liked the video, and I hope to see you guys around the verse.
Yes, that was a nice ship. That was the 600i.
This? Well, this is the 600i, the most recent ship added to Star Citizen, and certainly one of the best looking.
Yes.
However, it's not
12th July
And in this
2018.
video, that's what we're going to be talking about. Hey guys, I'm Morphologist, and if you didn't know, I'm a practicing architect in Taiwan. Now you might be wondering, why on earth is that at all relevant to a Star Citizen video? Well, let me tell you. Architects don't just build buildings. We create spaces for the human being. That means that we have an intimate understanding of the human scale and what makes humans feel comfortable or uncomfortable in any given space. Now, to the community's credit, there have been a lot of great statements about what has made the interior of the 600i unsuccessful. Namely, the biggest one is that it's a large waste of space on the interior. But that only partially gets at the issue. So in this video, I'll try to more accurately state what's wrong with the interior. And if you haven't seen the 600i, well then, you're also in for a treat. Before we continue though, let me first state that I don't think that Cloud Imperiums did a terrible job. It's actually wonderful. The design language is beautiful. But as all designers know, the design process is one of iteration. And it's my hope that this video helps them make a better 600i for the next version. So without further ado, let's begin. Our first stop is the cockpit of the 600i. It's one of the more beautiful spaces, and certainly what they've accomplished with visibility is definitely to be commended. The flowing lines, the selection of materials are all excellent. The panelization is beautiful. I frankly love it. However, we start to see some of the issues with the design here in the back. You see, there's a difference between using design language successfully and correctly designing space. The back of the cockpit area is basically unused. There are no places to sit or access for any of the other crew. That leaves basically 80 to 90% of the bridge unused during any sort of mission. Seems like quite a wasted opportunity. Perhaps some engineering stations might be useful in this area. Something certainly to consider. But now let's move aft to the exploration module. Here we're immediately greeted by a very large holographic readout which will presumably help us scan the area. It's wonderful, it's very large and easily readable. However, it's the surrounding space that really seems to fall short and utilize the space pretty poorly. Again here we can see very consistent design language and material selection just as we saw in the cockpit. However, it's the way that the language was utilized that makes it very difficult to use. The science stations are actually separated from the main holographic readout, which means that if I, as the captain, wanted to directly communicate with the science officers, I'd have to step through this door here and talk to them. This seems very unintuitive and quite user-unfriendly. I'm not quite sure what the thought process was behind the wall and splitting the program, but I would recommend removing it completely and keeping the struts as some sort of structural piece. Not only that, I'm not quite sure why the science stations are facing away from one another. I would believe that they would want to actually communicate, and facing away, I don't know if you ever talked to somebody before while facing away.
So, the part 3
Why not just
is
have
online.
both of these cages
For the
facing
lost
away
part
from
1.
the display? That way, when the captain comes in, they can also communicate with the captain without having to turn their heads 90 degrees to the right or left. Overall, though, I love the glass floor, and the design of the room is quite nice. Probably a bit too spacious. Probably try to figure out something more with some of these circulation paths. Instead of having so much circulation, maybe some more readouts or consoles would be better suited. Moving further aft here, we see a lift and a very well-designed staircase which fits perfectly with the 600i's design language. Next, we are visiting here the armory, which I believe has absolutely nothing wrong, so I'm going to kind of skip over this space and not speak too much about it. Now we're getting into one of the cooler parts of the ship. The rear end is really for relaxation of the crew, and it is pretty darn cool. Definitely very reminiscent of high-end yachts, but again, the design language is well utilized, but the space is not. I'm not quite sure what the benefit of having so much space behind the bar is and having so little circulation path around it. Also, why are there only 2 seats in front of it? Why not move the bar against the back wall, have ourselves a bit more for a seating area, we can have maybe a dance floor behind it or some additional tables. I'm not quite sure why the bar had to be located in the middle. The circulation around the side though is just fine, and I really like this rear end seating area. It's a little bit low and makes it hard to look out horizontally from the ship, but vertically it's pretty uninterrupted and gorgeous. Though I wonder why the table is so far from the seating area. It seems quite difficult to reach if I wanted to put my drinks down. Maybe some interstitial places to put drinks between the long bench and the back would be nice. But otherwise, I think it's overall pretty nice. I like the added wood accent as well. It gives a bit more of a luxurious feeling to it. And seeing as how a lot of this ship is so large and so spacious, it's nice to also see a bit of a more intimate space here with this little seating area. This back one is quite large, and I really can't see myself having a very comfortable, intimate conversation there. But now that we've looked at this upper half of the entertainment area of the 600i, let's look at the lower half. Actually, I think the lower part of the ship is quite intimate, which I enjoy. I think large spaces can be sometimes confused for luxurious, but oftentimes they're not. It feels nice to be able to hang out with friends in an area that feels human-scaled, and this back pool table area certainly feels that way. Definitely would love to play a game of pool back here. The separation wall seems a little bit strange. I'm not quite sure why you'd want to have it there. It makes so much of that space inaccessible. Perhaps maybe removing that or moving it or adjusting its position might be a bit better. This kitchen area back here, though, is quite nice. Again, the stools are a bit strange. I'm not quite sure why they're fixed or so far away from the actual table. It seems like it'd be very uncomfortable to use it, seeing as how you'd be so far away from the plate that you're eating from. Maybe having some more or movable ones would be nice. Kitchen counter is nice. Definitely a bit more upscale from IKEA, I would say. I think there's nothing really wrong with it. The refrigerator looks fine. The material selection looks amazing. I don't think I would change much. The only thing I might be concerned with is stuff sliding around, but I'm sure they've got some sort of future magnets holding stuff together. Now, we're going to start talking a bit less about the interior design and more about the arrangement of spaces, because this part of the ship is really strangely located. I have no idea why they didn't add an alternative access point to get to storage and engineering that doesn't go through the area that would presumably most often have.
Yes, this is a super good looking ship. So every ship companies, I think they try to make some different kind of design. That's a modern design. I like it. But I like the other one, the Constellation, better than this. It's super nice looking.
Passengers in it. If I am a billionaire in space, a space billionaire from Star Citizen, and I've paid good money to be transported on this 600i, Why would I want my relaxation space interrupted by an engineer suddenly walking across my field of view? This wouldn't be done in real life. And so I really think that they should very strongly consider making an alternative route. It could be a ladder or something. It doesn't have to be easily accessible by a non-professional user. It just has to have a way to get here without having to walk across the view of the guests. That being said, this area is very well designed. I love the blue lighting. It really denotes that it's a very different kind of space from the very warm and intimate VIP area. Very well done in that sense. It's also very well designed for the fact that it's an area of the ship that will most often not be seen by the large majority of users. But I digress. Let's move on to the lower deck of the ship. Now here we see an exceptionally well thought out piece of the design of the 600i. The elevator or lift has a different sort of design language. The doors are glass and different, and you can see the interior space as being circular. Without even having to have anybody tell you or look at a sign, I'm guessing that you guys immediately knew that this was a vertical lift that was going to bring you to a different part of the ship. That is successful design. Being able to convey with the design the function of the space. They've done it very well here. At the end of the hallway, down and to the right, from getting off the lift, we arrive here at the crew quarters. Personally, I find this space to be the least successful interior design and arrangement of space in the entire 600i. The reason for that is that although the...
No, I not agree with that. That's super nice looking crew quarter. I like the design of this one. That's very sleek. It's super nice designed.
Crew cubbies here for where they sleep is extremely well designed, denoting the difference in space by using a different type of softer material, looks like leather and pleated fabric. It's extremely exposed to the rest of the crew members. What this means is that in long-haul flights, which assuming this ship will have since it's an exploration vessel, they'll have to be exposed to each other not only on duty, but off duty. Imagine having to live with your coworkers face to face all the time for months on end. I imagine without any privacy, it would kind of start to get on your nerves. Also a great deal of wasted space in that area in the center, which I'm not quite sure how to utilize. In this area of the ship, it's very much the same. The ceiling is very low, the lighting is very low, which although is very comfortable for a sleeping area, is somewhat claustrophobic. There are no windows to the outside, and there are no plants to soften the space. Plants and windows help create a more comfortable atmosphere. The color blue, in terms of blue lighting, is also often used in, say, airlines to give people a more comfortable, calming feeling. There have been a number of studies done by Boeing that has shown that the color blue is actually a much more therapeutic and soothing color to other ends of the spectrum. Something to think about. Something else very strange about the crew quarters here is the size of the bathroom. Now, the bathrooms are very well designed, don't get me wrong, they're spacious and comfortable, and I certainly wouldn't mind having something so large on a long-haul vessel. However, why separate the men's and women's and have a privacy door if you've got no privacy dividers in the sleeping quarters? It seems like a very large disconnect in terms of design philosophy. My recommendation? Reduce